Boricua. 2, 1. Hey, what's going on, Fasttalk podcast family? Welcome to a brand new version of Fasttalk. It is still Fasttalk podcast, but here I am with the writer, producer, co-writer, and star of the Bangkok Job. He's with us today. He played the second copy boy in the 1978 version of Superman and has been in the showbiz for over 50 years. Please give a massive Fast Talk podcast welcome to the one and only Ben Feitelson. Did I say it right this time?
Yeah, you got it right. Hey, how you doing?
All good, all good.
How are you all doing?
I'm over here in Korea just trying to make it happen. So you're the first person I've done this for, right? Um,
Well, I wish you a lot of luck. I'm very happy to be the first one.
so this opens up a massive opportunity for us. Normally, what I do is I go on the road and I just go out here in Anjeonri, Korea, and I start recording with some of my friends out here just in person. But you're the first person that I do this for, and hopefully the very first of a long list of people. And I feel like you're
It will be.
the first person that I could have on this version.
Thank you.
How long have you been acting in film and TV?
Well, I started when I was 16. My first TV paid job was 16 years old, French television. I came back from Nottingham because I was brought up in London, Nottingham, and I came back when I was 14, and at 16 I did my first paid TV.
And how much was that like for your very first gig, if you will?
How much? What you mean the salary?
Yeah, like just for the very first.
Well, if you think that in 1970, because I'm 72,
Oh wow. Hey, what?
okay, and I don't dye my hair. I got some grey hairs. I'm the way I am 72. So I was 16 in 1970 when I did my first paid TV for French television, and I was paid 700 francs a day. I did 2 days, which is 1,400, and I bought my first suit with my salary.
Wow. So like, how much was that in American money? You think the francs? Just for those that may not be.
No idea, because go back to 1970. How are you going to work out? You're going to go on Google and see how much the franc was worth in 1970. Do the maths. I don't know.
Let me look it up right now live. How much did he say you got paid? You said 700 francs.
700 francs.
700.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I did 2 days at 350 francs a day. That's 700 and something francs. And my suit in the sale was in mohair and alpaca, black. I saw it in the window before shooting, and I thought, I wish I could buy that suit, but I couldn't afford it, 16. And when I got paid, I went to buy it. The salary was the price of the suit in the sale.
Okay, so just so you know, 700 French francs from 1978,
Yeah.
equivalent to approximately $730 to $860, which is a very decent price for a suit. It's a little bit more on the upscale side, but wow. Uh,
It's a good salary for 1970 at 16.
so tell us about your role as the second copy boy in 1970.
Now, I went around the window because they wouldn't let me through the door. The casting director originally said I was too young and English, not American, to be in the Daily Planet. So I went through a friend who knew the producer, Pierre Spengler, who's a friend of mine still today, who was the executive producer. He gave me a letter for Pierre Spengler. This is all in the Superman, by the way. You can tell the internauts here, your friends and everybody, they can go on YouTube or on my YouTube, Ben Feitelson, and there is a 1 hour interview, not interview, podcast for the 45th anniversary of Superman, official. And Cape Wonder, who is the Superman fan club thing, also 2 years ago did a podcast on me that's out there on Twitter and everything about how I got into Superman, how I got drunk with Marlon Brando, the advice Gene Hackman gave me, etc., etc., etc. To save me explaining and wasting time now, just direct people to the two Superman podcasts I did for Cape Wonder on Twitter and Instagram and on YouTube, 45th anniversary.
Definitely
Hold on.
my Fast Talk family, 1978 Superman is also available on YouTube as well. That's what I learned today.
Ah, well, there you go. And to answer the question shortly, too, I finally got into the film, as people can find out on these other podcasts, which are long. So the short story is the director, the guy sent me to Piers Spengler. I went to Shepperton, sat in his office. He said, "What can I do for you?" He read the letter. He said, "Ah, very good." And I said, "Two things. I want to be in the film and I want to see Marlon Brando shoot." He said, "I'll get you in the film, but we're at the end of the casting, so it's only small parts left now." I said, "I don't care. I'll sweep the sets, you know." I was just out of drama school where I went in Paris, which is the Conservatoire National Superior Dramatic Arts. So I said, "I don't care, I'll do anything." He said, "But to get you to see Brando work, that's going to be more difficult." It was easier to get me in the film. And because I'm very stubborn, before I even started shooting, I was, and that is also in the podcast, the details, but the short version is, on the day of the last day of the shoot of Marlon Brando, Alexander Salkind's wife, in the production offices, where I was sitting for 3 days waiting to get on the set to see him work, said, "Listen, it's the last day." And she said to the driver, "Bob, take the kid Ben on the set. He's been waiting for 3 days. It's Marlon's last day." And I was on a closed set with Marlon Brando, Richard Donner, when Brando was doing the scene. "My son, you can't be Superman 24 hours a day." It took him an hour on overtime to do that. He kept messing up the lines. He had a gum in it. That's all on the podcast too. And he was reading off a teleprompter because he didn't learn the lines. And it was an amazing. And if you want to know more about this, go and listen to the Superman podcast, 45th anniversary, and the Cape Wonder. The whole story is there. Next question.
That was good. Hey, for 1978, I don't think people know how huge Christopher Reeves was, especially during that he was portraying Superman. But prior to Superman, was he a prominent actor?
Now, first, I'd like to say, bless your soul. Bless your soul. I loved him. I was friends with him after the shoot. We lived in the same area in Chelsea, in London. He lived like 200 yards away from me. And we'd meet up regularly. We'd go every week to the same health club where all the stars went. You know, even Tom Cruise, when he was doing his first major film in London, came to the club, and George Michael and Isaac Hayes, and we were all buddies. And we'd meet at the gym and we'd talk, and he was a great guy. And no, if you look at the history of the casting, he was not a major actor. He did small things, and it's his dentist that recommended him. His picture was first. That's all in the Cape Wonder thing too. His picture was put aside because they only wanted a star. You know, the usual thing. And each star could not do or did not want to do the job. And then at the end, someone said, "Listen, the star is Superman, not the actor. If you have a star playing Superman, the star is going to take over the character." Oh, yeah, like Tarzan. Every Tarzan that was made, the actor who played him was not an international star before playing him, you know? So that's how it happened. And they couldn't find it, and his name came up again. And in the end, he got the job. And he was very humble, very cool, very good at his work. And Marlon Brando, on the first day of shoots, had put in his dressing room a big, I can't remember the size of it, if it was 250, 500, it was probably a kilo with Brando because he was very generous. And a bottle of, I think it was Krug, one of the most expensive champagne in his dressing room, and a little note saying, "This is your film, kid."
Hey,
Wow.
so going back to the Bangkok Job, if you could, are you able to give like a quick like summary, like just a synopsis of what it's about for the viewers?
Oh, I could do it really quick. Two ex-hitmen, one last job. In other words, you've got two old London gangsters who are down and out, who are like washed up, finished, bye-bye, who get called back in to do a job through me to convince the other guy in Bangkok who doesn't want to do it to do it. Otherwise, he dies. Well, I don't know he's going to die yet, but we find out in the film later that the boss who we worked for, we went to school with together, sends me to Bangkok to kill the beast of Bangkok. Deals between them, bad deals between the bosses. And because I haven't worked for 5 years and I'm a gambler, I'm an alcoholic, I smoke too much, I've got no money, and I owe money to a load of poker games and horses and everything. He calls me in, puts 50 grand on the table, and said 50 to go out there and do it, and 50 when you come back. But you've got to do it with Frankie. And Frankie isn't talking to me for 5 years because I don't want to say any rude words. I had an affair with his wife, to be polite, who was a pole dancer. So he's angry with me, doesn't want to talk to me. So when I turn up in Bangkok, he punches me in the face, doesn't want to know. But then he needs money. It's all about money.
Yeah, cha-ching.
So when I bring the money out and put his share on the table, he looks at me. When he sees the hit, the Beast of Bangkok, he said, impossible. And he looks at the money and he invites me to dinner at his place. And then the relationship, it's actually a black humor, gangster comedy, but not with ha-ha. Subtle London black humor. And it's based on, not on action. We didn't have the money to do all the action scenes. So you've got to be clever. When you don't have the money, you've got to find other ways, you know? It's like my mother used to say. My father used to say that the best meals she made were when they were broke and I was a baby. She was a research chemist. And when I was a baby, and she came up with the best meals because she used her imagination. And to make her film, it's the same. If you've got no money or very little money, you've got to come up with all these ideas and tricks to do things without permissions and filming in the street without permission and having friends lend you their bars because you can't pay a bar, blah, blah, blah. And that's how we did it. And normally, our film shouldn't even exist. I mean, we should be on a shelf somewhere. But we got delayed through COVID. We lost 2.5 years, had to reshoot stuff in London. And at the end of the day, here we are at the film market in Cannes on sale. And there's some very important companies interested. And thanks to the editing is very important, very important. Thanks to the editing and the editor who did a great job, we're out there. But the genesis of the film is an accident. If you want to know, I'll tell you, but it's an accident. It wasn't meant to be.
Definitely. And who helped direct the Bangkok Job, or direct it in its totality?
Oh, Clive Saunders, who I met at a masterclass workshop in acting that we did in Paris, London, and Los Angeles with the only and the best coach and teacher left in the world today at the age of 99 for the Actors Studio is Jack Walzer. And we met at Jack Walzer's and we were going to do a play together, The Dumbwaiter, Harold Pinter. We couldn't get the rights. The National blocked it. So we ended up doing this film when my mother died in 2017. He suggested I go to Bangkok on the 13th of May. We arrived, my father's birthday, 2017, and it was very emotional. And as we were going around, he thought I was funny. He said, things happen to you, it's funny, it's like writing a script. Script writing itself. I said, well, let's write it. So we came up with an idea. We went back in November to Bangkok, and you can see on YouTube a teaser, 3-minute teaser called If It Swims. And that's how we got, yeah. And we filmed for 5 days with a guy who's a great photographer and cinematographer called Jan Frame. Then the real major DP was Emmerich Pilarski, who's an international, you can IMDb, and Emmerich Pilarski. He's an international DOP now. He was in the major festivals and Oscar nominated, etc., etc. But, we just shot 5 days and got a 3-minute teaser. Once again, I say, go and see on YouTube If It Swims. And from there, we got the cast. From there, we got interest. And from there, we wrote the script in 2018. And then we shot it in 2019, November, shot a few more scenes in London in January 2020, and then came COVID. And I thought, that's just my luck. I thought, this is just my luck. I've been struggling for 50 years. I survived in the business 50 years. And now I've got something that can get me up there, not just be a contender, like Brando said, On the Waterfront. I could have been a contender. And COVID, so we waste time editing and reshoot. So we waste 2.5 years, but here we are. And it was all an accident. And director Clive Saunders put up 90% of the money. I was supposed to put more, but I was in a big inheritance problem and I couldn't put the money up. And in the end, he paid for 90% of the film. He directed it, and I star in it, and he co-stars with me. And it's this story of a friendship of two guys set in a gangster comedy. So the essence is a very human film about a friendship. And, you could put friendship in a Western, in a love story, into this. And it's the essence that matters. And in this case, There's an emotional content, which is very touching on the this old friendship with a betrayal because of the wife, and then you've got the stakes of the job and the money and the killing. So you've got these different levels that, on a small budget, making a very and people when we had the screening in Bangkok and then screenings in London, the majority of people were very touched. And even though it's not a perfect film, because we didn't have the money to make it perfect, there are little faults we know here and there. But on the whole, there's one thing I'd like to say that comes up is everybody, even a few of the people, I'd say 10% of the people, it's not their cup of tea. I've got friends who said, it's a good film, you're very good, Ben, but it's not my cup of tea. You can't do anything about that. And therefore, they all say the chemistry. Clive Saunders and Ben Feitelson have got a chemistry that we don't know how it came about. We argue a lot in life. We go for months without talking to each other sometimes, like we are not talking right now. And there's always a problem. There's always a problem with the money, like in the film. And what happened is that the relationship we've had in life for the past 11, 12 years comes across in the film because we don't cheat. We created characters from ourselves. And we use the fact that these, if I may say, that these two gangsters who were finished, washed out on their last job, we used it as actors. In other words, I've been around for a long time, but I didn't become a star. I just was a working actor between London and Paris. And I survived. The universe kept me here for some reason. And, I'm Aries and I'm horse, and they say it's the year of the Aries and it's the year of the fire horse. So they say it's my year. So we'll see. But anyway, so it's just like a miracle. And Clive and I, even when we argue, we admit to ourselves that if we didn't have a conflictual relationship in life, like an odd couple, like we're not gay, but it's like we could be gay, arguing all the time. You know what I'm saying? Because there are relationships like that in friendships with men that are limit, but they are not because you're not. But there's always this feminine side and this masculine side. So it's like between relationships with a man and a woman. I always said it's the feminine side of the guy, where that is symbiotic to the male side of the woman. That's what works. If it's the macho side with the feminine side, it'll work for a few days, for a passion, for a sexual thing, but it won't be a deep, emotional, long lasting relationship. Does that make sense to you? So that bond we have and that conflict we have is what makes people like this film. And that's probably why it's still alive. And that's probably why we side with Michael Cowan of Blue Eyes Films, who are distributing the film in Cannes right now. And the rest, I'll tell you what, the rest up there.
Watch this trailer. This is where I'll put the trailer. Mount Rushmore. Your Mount Rushmore for your favorite actors. Who are they?
Marlon Brando.
I knew you were going to say that.
Al Pacino, who I know in life. I just did a small part in a film with him last year. The film is called Father Joe. It's a Luc Besson production, Father Joe is starring Kiefer Sutherland, Donald Sutherland's son. He's also a producer. Pacino is on it. And I've got a small part on it because I know Pacino in life since 1990 at the Actors Studio. And so the part I was supposed to do was cast in Bulgaria for financial reasons, so I was out. But then I said, I want to do something with Al. And because I did two films in the past with Luc Besson, I did Revolver, Guy Ritchie. I'm in Revolver, Guy Ritchie. And the French film, with Ray Liotta and Jason Statham. And it's still out nowadays. And I did Hallelujah, which is Le Missionnaire in French. It's a Besson production with a French star called Bigard. And I had another 13-day shoot, gangster part, very good at that. But this time, I've got one moment with Al Pacino, but it's magic. And it kept me humble because I'm going from my film. Some actors would have said, nah, I've just started my film. I produced it. I wrote it. I mean, I'm going to go places, I'm not doing one little scene with Al Pacino. And I said, I want to do it. They said, but it's very, I said, no, I want to do it. One life, one shot. I'm there.
Hey, so quick question. Okay, so old movies, you understand like how those are made from like we're talking about from like
Oh, and I love De Niro. I love De Niro. I love De Niro.
Yeah, I saw that picture on IMDb. I was gonna ask you about that offline.
Oh yeah, that you can ask me online. No, that's when Pacino introduced me to De Niro a year ago at the Grill on the Alley off Rodeo. Yeah, that was January a year ago at the Grill on the Alley where I go often to eat. and a great place. And as I know Pacino, when I walked in, the girl at reception, she knows I know Pacino. She said, "Oh, your friend's there." I said, "What? Who? Which friend?" She said, "Al." And I looked round, and table number one, as you walk in, there's Al De Niro and a big producer they were preparing a film with called Newman. Can't remember if he's Newman's son or not, but anyway. So I went to talk to Al and blah 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 blah. Blah. But then I said, "Listen, guys, I know it looks stupid, but you're the stars, not me. I'm just an actor. But I've got to do the picture." And this was like great. It was a moment to describe, because when I said that, you got Al the way he looked, and you got Bobby De Niro in his little jacket and tie. They looked at each other like this. Look, can I do a picture with you? Say I'm Pacino. He looks at you, you're De Niro. They went, yeah, okay. They consulted each other. And then I take the camera to do a selfie, and De Niro says to me, "I got to tell you what De Niro. Can I tell you what De Niro said to me about the Bangkok Job?" And then De Niro says to me, "You're going to do a selfie?" I said, "Well, yeah," because I was embarrassed to ask the manager, who's a friend of mine, take a picture and stop everybody. And I just took a selfie, I don't need. And then I told them about the Bangkok Job, by the way, and I showed them the old poster, the original poster, with the three of us and the gun on my head. And I said, "Listen, guys, this is what I've done." And I said, "Al, you know me. I'm not a star like you guys, but I'm not talking to the stars. I'm talking to the craftsmen." And we all worked with Jack Walzer, and we know Jack Walzer. And I said to Bobby, "I worked with your best friend, Barry Primus. I did impros at Jack Walzer with Barry Primus." He said, "You did?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "The teacher, Jack?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Al, you're the one that sent me in 1990 after the Actors Studio when he bought me lunch at Joe Allen's with his two best friends." I said, "You told me when I said I auditioned for this guy that I had to work with Jack Walzer. He was the best." So I did. But then I showed them the poster, and I said, "The trailers are on YouTube, guys." And I'm talking to the craftsman. "I've been surviving for 50 years, and I've made my film. You can at least watch the trailer." De Niro says to me, "That's good, Ben, because nowadays, if you want to break the ice and get through in films, the only way is by making your own film. Otherwise, you're Fucked. I want to be polite. If I didn't want to be polite, I'd have said you're fucked. But I want to be polite, so I say Fucked. And I said, "Yeah, I know. That's why I did it, Bob." And then Pacino, I swear on my life, he can confirm it if he hears this one day. He said, "Ben, I don't want to see your trailer. I want to see your film." Now you're going to tell Ken Silk, who's a writer, actor, his best friend, and a friend of mine for the past 35 years now. I always see when I go to LA and everything. And I've done workshops. He comes to Jack Walzer too. And although he's 85 now, like Al Pacino, and he said, "Tell Ken to send me your film." And because I said I owe him lunch since 1990, he said, "Tell Ken to give you Mickey's number. Call Mickey. I'm very busy over Christmas in the preparation of this film with Bobby, but he'll try to find a place for you and I to have lunch." So I get Ken to send the film. And then when I was going to call Mick for Pacino, the fires in LA came. And I left for New York on the day before the fires in LA a year ago. And I didn't want to bother Al with lunches when the whole when the whole place is on fire. You don't do that. Some people just think about themselves, and then I don't do things like that. So I did, and then I saw him. Oh yeah, and then I saw him again. But and then then I'm on the set of Father Joe with him. And he walks up towards me, and director says, "Ben's going to be your bodyguard." He looks at me, and then I'll tell you something funny, very funny. If you like to know, it's not very short, but it's funny. Is that we do one take. We do two takes going into a church. And on the third take, he hasn't said a word to me. I'm thinking, we're out of context. He hasn't recognized me. He hasn't recognized me. And I say, "Al, you don't remember me, do you?" And I swear. And he looks at me. We're standing there next to the place where you bless yourself at the entrance of the church. The cameras are facing us, and he looks at me and he says, "Ben, I remember everything, but now I'm working, so I'll talk to you later." And I said, "Al, I'll keep my fucking big mouth shut." And he said, "Thank you." I said, "Action." And then we went again. And the reason why I'm saying this is a miracle, it's because this is a miracle. Because the last thing he said to me at the restaurant with De Niro, he said to me, "When you came towards me, Ben, I was in shock." I said, "What do you mean you were in shock?" He said, "I thought I saw my father's ghost. And in 1990, when he bought me lunch at Joanne's, after about 3 minutes, he said to me, "You remind me of my father when." How old are you? I said, "I'm 33, sir." He said, "Yeah, about that age." And he looked in his wallet and he couldn't find it. He said, "You're going to come back to the studio?" I said, "Sure I am." And he said, "I'll show you one day." I still haven't seen the picture, but I found it on Google. And there is a family thing between my father, me, and his father. So when he said that to me, I said, "Oh, that's why you had that look." He said, "What look?" I said, "Well, he looked at me. I thought you were going to tell me to fuck off." And he said, "No." And really, he was very, very smiling and quiet. And he said, "No, Ben, you're all good. You're all good. It was just the emotion." And I had his eyes in my eyes. De Niro was sitting next to there. We were doing our thing, talking when they were in the middle of a business meeting. The producer was sitting there, didn't say a word. And this happened in two times during the meal. And I said, "Okay, I'll get out of here." And I said, "Yeah, we'll get back to our business meeting." I said, "I'll see you around. See you. Bye." And then I see him again on the set. And my daughter said to me, got a clairvoyant, uh, instinctive, premonitory dreams. And she said to me, "That is amazing. The last time you see Al, he says to you, 'When I saw you, I thought you were my father's ghost.' And a year later, because the part was changed because they hired for financial reasons an actor in Bulgaria when I was supposed to play the mob boss in Bulgaria, you accept to do, in fact, you asked to do this little bit of his bodyguard in the film. And it happens to be in Paris, walking into a church where Kiefer Sutherland is the priest. And there's a whole setup thing. And I said, yeah, it's very strange. And my daughter said, it's the universe who is testing you to see if you are now humble enough and if you deserve to be successful. So you did good accepting that and doing that. End of story.
Oh, I'll take the whole story. Like we're definitely gonna put the whole thing. But there's other questions I'm trying to get to. Just to show that I did my research too. I did my research. So this question you're gonna like. Does Swan ever ask you for acting advice?
My daughter, no, you know why? I brought her to Jack Walter when she was 17, and she's very, very good, very emotional, very beautiful. If you've seen her pictures, she's a really great actress. Jack told me she could really make it if she wanted to. And I actually did a film with her, a trilogy, the Skin Territory trilogy, and the first one, which is on Amazon for years now, called Shanghai Belle, by Jean-Louis Daniel, French, very good French director. She's playing my daughter in the trilogy, and she goes from the age of 12 to 24 because the whole thing was filmed over 12, 13 years. Like that film that went to Cannes with a boy that they got the Palme d'Or for. The film was filmed over 12 years, and the kid grew up over 12 years of film for real. And I grow 12 years older in the film. My daughter grew is 12 years older, and it has now been made into a series of 6 episodes to sell to the platforms, and it's out there somewhere. It's going to come up one of these days. Maybe when the Bangkok Job sells, I'm starring in this, but it's a woman's film, Skin Territory trilogy. Uh, it's going to do great for my daughter because she will be the only actress since the beginning of films, Swan Feitelson, going from the age of 12 to 24 for real over the years in a film. So she never asked me for advice as an actress, and I always wondered why. And the only thing I ever did for her as a father and as an actor was breathe, relax. Because one of the most important premises in any kind of work, in any field, when you have something to do, is to breathe, to relax. Because you can't do anything under tension. You can't do it good. Whatever your talent is, if you're tense in sport, in painting, in singing, in writing, in making love, it's all an act of love. So all these things we do from our heart, whether it's running the Olympics or in a tennis court, or picking flowers in a field. It's all to do with love. And to love, you have to be in contact with the other person or with the flower that you're picking. And you've got to feel it, and you've got to breathe and relax. And then you're in the cosmic symbiosis with the universe, and happens what happens. Let things happen, in other words. Don't try and when I was young, I would try and I want to be successful. I want this part. I want this woman. I want this car. No, no, just do what you do. Follow the river of your destiny. One advice is I gave my daughter, don't go against the current. You're in a boat. I used to do when I was a teenager, kayak, on the river. And I learned then, because I nearly died going underneath, the kayak turning over, I learned that you've got to go with the flow of the water, be relaxed and breathe. And the moment you tense up, the boat goes and you can die. And don't try and go against the current of the river in your life. That's an advice for all you people out there. I love you all. Really, try and relax and go with the flow. Life will take you where it's meant to take you. Do not worry. Everyone has his time.
Hey, Ben, you did it. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being a part of the very first Fast Talk podcast, at least video chat style.
Click link in bio. Like, follow, subscribe, comment, like all my stuff. Become a guest, never unfollow.